payday was a Friday, I would maybe have to rely on the lunch takings to take them out the till, to put them in the bank, to make sure my staff get paid for the week before. Sometimes you're paid, back in those days I was paying suppliers by cheque. I was thinking, I hope he doesn't cash that for a few days.
Wow.
I can remember my wife had, one time she had friends round for tea and coffee, and I said, how's the restaurant going, Michelle? And she's going, oh, it's going great, everything's going fine. She was still working. So we'd maxed out credit cards, we had no facility for anything, so friends are around for a bit of lunch, tea break or whatever, and the bailiffs turn up at the door. What's going through your mind is, I've no idea how I'm going to get through this, but I just have to. Your dad has worked hard to pay you through a school, and you turn up with nothing. You come out of it with zero qualification. He's given you any education he never had, couldn't afford, and then there you are with nothing. You have this feeling in your gut, I need to pay him back. I thought, things will turn. And actually they did. Slowly the place started taking a few £1,000s more.
I see, okay.
And it became a profitable business. I said, well, we'll just open for one weekend and we'll call it the Buckdown Takeaway. And we'll only do it for one weekend and say we're doing it for one weekend, and we'll sell 200 burgers, only burgers, and then that'll be it. 200 gone. And we'll test the waters. It went crazy. And 700 people turned up. I thought, I'm going to jail. I'm going to be on Good Morning Britain, Piers Morgan. We got it sold out, and then we just said, right, let's do it every weekend. And we just kept going. I don't like to follow trend. I like to look at tradition over trend. You've got to look at a tradition. What's worked, what's got longevity that has been successful for 100 years.
If you were to start something new, all right, walk me through what your thought process would be. So thinking through how you would go about starting this, what's going through your mind?
Well, first thing you got to look at, for me.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Stories That Shape Us. We believe everyone has a story worth sharing and learning from. And today I'm honored to be in the same room with Michael Bergson. Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Mike, I thought we'd start with general introductions. Now, I know your bio. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that shortly. But if you could describe who Michael is and what makes him tick, what would you say?
Oh, definitely. See, you're a family man first. Father of two grown-up boys, increasingly grown up, 16 and 19. Husband, eldest of 6 brothers. And I don't know, I like to work. I like to keep busy. I like what I do.
What do you do?
I work in the food and drink business. What's better to be working in,
Yeah.
Everyone loves food. Everyone loves booze. People love a bar. People love an atmosphere. They love music. And my life revolves around all those things.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I was thinking about the hospitality business. And I'm a software engineer, right? I was thinking that is actually an industry filled with lots of work, right? So every day you go in, you make fresh food, you clean up afterwards, you constantly rebrand and ensure you're presenting your building in the best possible. Where do you think your love for that kind of sort of work and that industry itself comes from?
I actually, see, when I was growing up, there was a period, I was born in 1975. So there was a period really as you get to sort of the 90s where all my friends were struggling for work, and there was a real kind of, what are we going to do? I wasn't clever enough to go to university, wasn't good enough at school. My dad worked really hard to pay for me to go to a private education, and I felt I let him down because I didn't get any qualifications at all. And I knew fine well that, I used to see the demand letters coming through. He was struggling to pay that, but he paid us through nevertheless. And I came out of school, and my dad was like, you're going to have to work. I'm not going to let you sign on. If you're finishing school, you have to work. Come from a family of old school barbers. The shop's always open, and while the shop's open, you're always there. My grandfather was a barber. My dad was a barber, and it was just like, you've got to get out and work. And I was like, well, what do I do? So that me and my friends who were at school, we tried lots of different jobs. I mean, really bad jobs like door-to-door sales and just things that weren't enjoyable to me, you know, chapping people's doors in the rain and trying to sell them something, annoying them while they're trying to relax in their living room. And it was all just horrible. And then I got the chance, my dad managed to get me a job once I turned 18 to go and work in the pub that he goes to.
Okay.
And I loved it. Got the bug. And that was it. I loved restaurants. I've always loved restaurants and pubs and bars and nightclubs. And one of the things I did, me and my friends while we were at school, is it was during the early 90s when we were 15, 16, it was like the early rave scene. And we used to organise like under 18s nights and things like that. Never made much money out of it, but it got me the buzz for marketing something and trying to create something. You know, that buzz of just, you've got a room. You know, I might have a community hall, and I would hire in lights and a sound system and book DJs and stuff like that, and people would come and have a good time. Probably weren't as busy as I needed to make any money, but I had that kind of buzz, you know. So that was it. I enjoyed working in a pub, and then I just thought maybe I can make a career out of this, and I applied to a big restaurant group and started working my way up there.
And when did box bar become a thing for you? When did you transition more from, you know, working in a restaurant, working for someone, to actually start thinking about your own ideas and that up?
I mean, the thing is that box was a concept that formed in my head. I'd worked my way up in the industry to running big units and having big jobs, and then when I went out to work myself, my first restaurant was actually one called Soho on Miller Street.
Okay.
Which I opened during the credit crunch in 2008. Everyone said, you are mental opening at this time. So I'd actually planned to make that kind of New York style grill. And then when the recession hit, I thought no one's going to be out looking for steaks and expensive things. So I made that pizzeria. And it was on a basement site. And we did cheap pizza and pasta. That was our main sort of thing. And I was just in a tremendous amount of debt. Went back to work, had to work while having my own business, and got myself out of that debt. And then, by that point, I was able to open another one in Jordan Hill called Little Soho. So I had Soho and Little Soho, but it was that typical kind of restaurant business there's so many restaurant businesses that are like this, where you're just really on the line every week. You're kind of making enough money, and you're on the phone to your suppliers saying, listen, give me another week and I'll pay that. So you're relying on making money the next week to pay them for what you owe them a few weeks ago. And then you're sort of, there's the old robbing, they call it the robbing Peter to pay Paul thing. You're saying to one supplier, listen, can I have another week on that? And you're using their money to pay one supplier, and you're just always behind. You know, bank balance is going to zero.
Oh my days.
You know, and you're terrified. Sometimes you're paying, back in those days, I was paying suppliers by check. I was thinking, I hope he doesn't cash that for a few days.
Wow.
Or some days you would have to, you know, payday was a Friday. So all my staff were expecting money in the bank on a Friday. And I would actually have to, back then, this is like 2009 sort of time, I would maybe have to rely on the lunch takings to take them out the till, to put them in the bank, to make sure my staff get paid for the week before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you were running down to the bank before 5 o'clock to get that cash in to say, oh, that's me, I've got enough money, I can pay everyone now. So you were right on the line. So I thought, you know, this is just a standard restaurant, it's doing okay, it's perceived to be busy, but I need something else that's a stronger brand and really speaks to people, has a strong vibe and atmosphere. And I started trying to think of I always loved America. And I was always fascinated with, you know, you go into these places and I can describe it to you. You've maybe got some neon lights, rock and roll music, big red leather booths. The food, they do really good burgers or something like that. Shots of bourbon at the bar. Well, I describe that to you. You've got a very clear picture in your mind. But there weren't really places like that in Glasgow. So I was inspired by places like that, Hell's Kitchen, etc. So I had this picture of how I wanted it to feel, but I couldn't get the food in my head. I was like, what kind of food should I sell now? At this point, everyone was doing gourmet burgers. Everyone was doing smoked meats. No one was doing it very well. And I thought, I need something different. And it was another trip to America where I was in New York and got stuck there. And I actually tried something called Nashville hot chicken.
Okay.
Well, we were stuck because it was a snowstorm, so our flight was delayed, so we had to spend another couple of days. So just went to local places and thought, spicy fried chicken done really well. Glaswegians would love this. Why have we only got fast food fried chicken in Glasgow?
I see.
And going to bars with really good wings where they make their own sauce and all this kind of stuff. Everywhere that was selling wings seemed to be bought in sauce. And I thought, what if we did this? Wings really well, fried chicken really well, rock and roll vibe atmosphere, and the concept of Bucks was born.
Where did you get the name Box from? Box, man.
This is a really interesting thing. So I knew it was going to be chicken, and I wanted it to be personal to me. And I was thinking, what do people call most, I had a few nicknames at school. My name's Bergson. People used to call me Bergie, Bergie's Bar. Everyone calls me Michael, Michael's Bar.
Right.
Let me think. It's someone else. Only my brothers ever call me Mike.
I see.
They're the only people who call me Mike. But they call it Mike's Bar. I'm not really cool. And then I was thinking of all these. I was very tall when I was younger. At one point, my nickname was Lamp Post because I was tall and skinny. So no, that won't work. But I had this teacher at school called Mr. Sen, and he had a strong accent, and he used to pronounce my name Buckson.
I see.
Buckson.
Uh-huh.
And if I was messing about, he'd go Buck, and he would do this. So only a couple of my friends found that funny.
Right.
And there was a very short period of time where a small amount of people used to call me Buckson,
I see.
Buck, and they'd call me over. I thought, you know what, that also sounds like the noise a chicken makes.
I see.
And I just thought, Buck's Bar. That's what I'll do. I'll call it Buck's Bar.
Right.
And then just got a logo made, and it looked right, sounded right, felt right. Let's go. No one calls me that anymore. It was a very short period of time when I was at school. But it was my friend Scott that mainly called me, and he thought this was hilarious. And he and I were the two that were always in trouble in school. First day of the lesson, always sat down the front because we were messing about. Right, both of you, you'd actually have to sit at the teacher's desk so he or she could keep an eye on you. That was us. We were always messing around, just heads full of nonsense. And that was it, Buck's Bar. So it's thanks to one of our teachers, Mr. Sen.
Interesting.
So yeah.
What fascinates me is when you had like the previous businesses, so like pizzeria, and you had this really tough time period. How long roughly would you say you went through?
Well, I opened that in 2008 and had to go. I was so lucky, actually. I can remember my wife just crying. She would do the bank transfers and stuff, and all sorts of experiences. So, for instance, we had one time she had friends round for tea and coffee. How's the restaurant going, Michelle? And she'd go, oh, it's going great. Everything's going fine. She was still working. So we'd maxed out credit cards. We had no facility for anything. So our friends are around for a bit of lunch, tea break or whatever, and the bailiffs turn up at the door.
What's that?
The bailiffs. So they're the people that come to like
the courts and stuff.
Yeah. So they're like, look, if you don't do this, we're going to have to come in and see some of your possessions and serving a notice. And then there were times I was just saying, you had suppliers just saying to you, I'm not delivering today unless you pay me right now. So you're on this knife edge where say you get to Friday and they're phoning you Friday morning and saying, if you don't pay this right now, you're getting no stock today. So you've got a choice there that if you don't pay them or you can't find the money to pay them, you won't get your stock that day and your customers will arrive and a lot of the stuff won't be in the menu. Oh my goodness. So you're in this constant state of trying to work that out. Now, there's ways you can do it. You can try and negotiate with them. You can beg them, say, can you give me another day? Or you can, like you say, you can see if you get some lunch takings and try and make a bank transfer then by getting some money into the bank. And we were just, hanging by a thread all the time. So that went on and on and on till about for the first couple of years.
Right.
When it was really, at one point, I mean, you've got a restaurant business is a low margin business. So we were taking at that site, my first restaurant, we were only sometimes turning over 12, 13 grand a week, but we were £120,000 in debt.
You're joking.
No. So that's not viable, and it's just, you're effectively trading insolvent. And I was just so lucky that I got this out of the blue. I got this job offer from one of my previous bosses to come and say, look, we're trying to find someone to do this job of this huge bar, restaurant, multi-operation, casino, everything. And we can't find anyone to do it. We think you'd be the right guy. And I ended up going back to them and working for three and a half years. So I had a big salary coming in.
Right.
And then all the money from my business didn't have to take, so I was able to, that money then went and started paying off the debt, and some of my salary went to paying off that debt. And that was it.
Interesting. So in those few years where you had this really tough crunch, what was going through your mind and what kept you going through that period?
Well, what's going through your mind is, I have no idea how I'm going to get through this, but I just have to. I mean, a lot of people do that thing where a lot of my debt was to the tax man. But unfortunately, part of my deal, because I'd signed a lease, part of my deal in the lease property, so you're renting this property on a 21-year lease.
I see.
And the owners of the property had the thing that if your company goes insolvent, we take the property back off of you. So that wasn't an option. So if I went insolvent, I would have lost it. So you just have to, there just has to be something in there. It's like something's going to happen. I mean, I was really, really, I thought to myself, it was obviously 2008, 2009, 2010. People were still talking about the aftermath of this huge recession. And I thought, things will turn. And actually they did. They started to turn about, even though I was working for that other company, they started to turn.
Yeah.
And slowly the place started taking a few £1,000s more a week.
See. Okay.
And it became a profitable business. But it was just the first 2 years that it was just losing money.
Were you tempted to be like, I'm done with this? Like,
Never.
Why?
Not once.
Where does that come from?
Well, I think that comes from, I actually think it comes from, see when your dad has worked hard to pay you through a school and you turn up with nothing. You come out of it with 0 qualifications. You're not college, you're not uni. You feel that he's giving you an education he never had, couldn't afford. And then there you are with nothing. You have this feeling in your gut, I need to pay him back. It's payback time. I need to make something work.
Yeah.
And I used to go there and pop into my dad's shop or something like that. And the women that worked for him would be like, I mean, your dad's spending all that money in your education.
Oh.
You're only working in a pub, and come on, Michael.
Yeah.
Talking to me. So I always had that, God, I need to do better than this.
Did you have anyone who shared your viewpoints then? Because it seemed at that point, I'm sure many of your friends perhaps may have said, like, Michael, are you serious? What's going on?
Listen,
do you have anyone who shared your belief?
No, nobody. It was all internal. No one believed me. I mean, my dad, I have to clarify this. Like, my dad was just wanting me to get a steady job and don't, I was constantly having to borrow bits of money off him. Listen, Dad, a bit short on my rent this week or whatever. As dads do, helping you, a wee bit of money here, there, or I've got a night out coming up, Dad, going to lend me 20 quid, or just daft stuff, I'm only 18, 19 at this point. But there was just something inside. And it was when I got on that, I hadn't been good at anything. I hadn't been good at school. I hadn't been great at sport. I wasn't, I was never a superstar at anything. I went and worked in the pub. And then something happened when I got into the restaurant and bar trade, where I was always that kind of guy. I would get a lot of bollockings off of my boss, but I never got the same bollocking twice. Because when he said, don't do that again, I wouldn't. Or you need to do that better, I would. So I was always that. I just finally got this feeling when I started getting into the bar restaurant game. I'm actually quite good at this. I'm good at dealing with people. I like dealing with staff. I enjoy it. I can do the long hours, no
Yeah.
problem. They don't grate on me. I can happily do a 14-hour shift in a bar or a restaurant. Doesn't bother me. I like being here.
I see.
I'm in a good atmosphere. I get my staff meal. This is great. I'm so lucky. I'm getting tips. I'm loving this.
Interesting.
So I just, the moment I started getting on that ladder, became very hungry. And it was like, work your way up. I said, right, I want a manager position, assistant manager, general manager. Now I want to be the general manager of the biggest, busiest place. Now I'm doing that. I want to go and work for a company that does even bigger venues. And that's exactly what I did.
Interesting. So, fast forward a couple of years, Box Bar is still very much in the business.
Well, yeah.
How many?
Well, the thing with that was I needed money to open. I had this concept in my head and I wasn't making enough money to. So I managed to get a Brewer deal from tenants where it's like sell tenants lager and their products, and I got a bit of a loan. But after I paid for the lawyer fees and everything to get the venue, I had something like £20,000 to spend in the Bucks shop fit. So we did a lot of it ourselves. I ripped the bar out with a guy called Bob that worked with me. He's a real good handyman. If he ever watches this, he'll tell you about the horror. Like we had these big pillars and we were angle grinding them.
Oh my goodness.
all day, and we did a lot of the shop fit ourselves. Pay as you go, like a little bit of profit in my business, right? I'll get that tradesman in to do this. So we opened the place up and it wasn't finished. It was a lot more barren than it looks now. And we hadn't quite got the recipe right in terms of, you can get a recipe right, but upscaling it and doing it all days are a much more different thing. And we weren't getting the consistency. And it wasn't busy for the first year. It was dead. There were certain days we would have. The notorious story is Simone, who was one of the managers there, who's now my area manager and looks after all the Bucks. She, one day I phoned her up to say how were the sales today. She said, well, we had one customer all day. It was from 12 o'clock in the afternoon till midnight.
Right. One
One customer, and I said, what did they have? He said, one coffee. That was the daily sales. So it wasn't working. And I still had Soho, which at this point was doing okay. And I went in one morning and I started measuring up the kitchen and saying I get pizza ovens in and I can do the pasta there and I can make this Soho on West Regent Street. I can change it. All I'll have to do is pay for the sign and that, but I didn't even have enough money to do that. So I couldn't do it. And I just stuck with it. I just stuck with it because I had no option. And it was funny because I had a figure in my head, a break even of about 13 grand a week.
I see.
Right? That was my break even point. And it was doing like 6, 7, 8 grand a week, 9 grand a week. And I thought, here we go.
We're getting
And then
somewhere.
it went 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. So it was just another business, just hemorrhaging money. And then something happened.
What happened?
Well, it was like, first and foremost, Soho was doing quite well. So at this point, Soho was doing double the sales of what it had been doing in the dark days. It was doing good. And Bucks, we got it finished. It started to feel like I meant it to feel. The food, we got the consistency right. And we were doing that well. We had good staff, good team that stuck with me. Great manager called Lisa and Simone that had stuck with me since day one there. They opened the place, they were still going. Getting to know the customers, we were just getting it right. And just slowly but surely the word got out there. This is actually, the chicken in this place is really good. Staff are nice, atmosphere's good. And it got to that break-even point. And then I had this journalist friend called Bev. So I phoned up Simone again one day and I said, Bev, and I said, Simone, how's things? My end of night phone call. And she said, we've got 3 or 4 tables still in. We've had an okay day. I said, great. No problem. She put the phone down. And then this journalist friend of mine phones me, this girl called Bev. She says, Michael. I said, yeah. She goes, Shania Twain is in your restaurant. And I went, no, she's not. I've just spoken to Simone. She would have mentioned Shania Twain. There's only 3 or 4 tables. she would have mentioned if Shania Twain was in the restaurant. And she goes, no, she's in there. She took a picture. So our toilets, this is like my immature humour, are, instead of gents, ladies, are called cocks and hens.
Right.
Right? And it's just a silly thing. And Shania Twain thought this was funny, and she posted a picture of herself outside the toilets saying, "Welcome to Glasgow." And Bev saw it, and she said, she's in there. So I phoned back Simone, and I said, "Simone,
What?
I said, Simone, Shania Twain's in the restaurant." She went, "No, she isn't. No, she." Oh my God. Shania Twain's like sitting in the corner with her husband. It was just random. I can't even remember why she was here. She wasn't performing, but she'd found herself in Glasgow, staying at the Blythswood, and wandered down the hotel up the road and then wandered down. And that was our first social media explosion.
I see. When was this?
This was at this point, we'd opened Bucks in 2016.
Right.
It was dead for a year.
Mhm.
Second year, from New Year, it started going okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it was later on that year. It was later on in the year 2017. So we're open about a year and a half.
Okay.
And she posted it, and it just put us in the consciousness. Now, the interesting thing is Shania Twain's a country singer. So people associate country with the kind of food we do.
I see.
So it's like she's done that. The reality is Shania Twain is Canadian and she's a vegan.
I see.
She ate something vegan, and she didn't have it. She enjoyed it. She was fine. But it put the perception out there. Wow, Shania Twain's gone there for a taste of home, And people got interested, and at that point we were doing okay, and then it just took off.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because here's how I got to know about Box Bar. So I stay outside Glasgow now in a place called Bishopton, but prior to that we lived in Surrey Glen.
Oh yeah.
Right, and a couple of months ago, my wife Blessing was like, "I want to get some chicken," and so we literally typed on Google "best chicken in Glasgow," and we saw Box Bar. Like, okay, well, let's explore, right?
And you enjoy it?
So and since then, that's her favorite chicken in Glasgow.
Oh, that's good. Too.
Like so that's how we actually got to know about Box Bar.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about maybe the technicalities of running a hospitality or restaurant business. So of course I know there's an element of social media and marketing, right?
Huge.
Really, how huge is that?
Well, it's interesting how it's changed, because the other thing I forgot to mention about Soho. Soho was struggling, and there was a very influential restaurant reviewer called Tam Cowan, and he wrote for at this point the Daily Record had 1 million readers in Scotland.
I see.
And he's actually a football pundit type comedian guy, but he used to just go to restaurants and people kind of paid attention to what he was writing, and he gave us a good review in Soho. And that was one of the things that helped us keep our head above water. And then when I opened Bucks, the guy, not him, not Tam, but the guy from the Herald came in and gave us a bad review. It wasn't ready yet, it wasn't quite perfect. And it didn't really have that much. I don't think that really was a big worry to us. And so, when we started that business, it was still the kind of era of restaurant reviews and newspaper reviews and things like that. And it just changed. Then it was TripAdvisor. And now I would argue, I don't know about you, but if I am going, like you Googled, brilliant. But then I will do that, but then I'll look at their Instagram to work out if I'm going to like it.
Yeah, I see. Because like the ambience, the place itself.
You can get a feel of the ambience. You can even get a feel of what the service is going to be like.
Can you?
You can see pictures of the food.
Yeah.
Of course, because, so much of what we do now is our staff are featured on our social media.
Gotcha.
And they do fun videos.
I see.
So you're going to come in, it's not going to be formal. Staff are going to have a laugh with you.
Yeah.
If you're coming in for a party, you're going to get someone with a bit of sense of humour and a bit of banter. That's what you want, And it's one of those things. So the social media thing actually really took off.
Right. Okay.
And it was just literally, it's really interesting when you watch that. So Instagram became, Soho was Facebook, which was okay. And then by the time Bucks had come along, it was Instagram.
I see.
And it was a big pictures of chicken burgers and chicken waffles
Right.
and things like that we always, so we just kept posting that.
Uh-huh.
But then Instagram changed their algorithms sometimes. It's as if sometimes too many people are posting food stuff, so they'll knock you down. And it's quite interesting how that's working these days.
Mm.
And I think going into lockdown, we had something like 20,000 followers. And now we're up at 70, 80,000
Whoa.
just for bucks.
Interesting.
You know?
Okay.
And a big part of that was lockdown, you know, because we were one of the first places to open for takeaway. Restaurants to open for takeaway. You got takeaway shops stayed open, but restaurants shut.
Yeah.
And we decided to open, and it was like people were looking for something to do, and they were just all posting pictures of their bucks
I see.
bags. We called it Buck Down. We only opened at the weekend. The Buck Down takeaway show.
Buck down.
Buck Down. It's funny because if you remember, we all shut down, and I was actually, I was scared to open up because if you remember, when places were locking down, when restaurants were shutting, and we shut the day before lockdown.
Right.
So because a bunch of us had this, it was COVID really.
Yeah.
Because it was, and I'm saying, mate, God, a bunch of us have got this thing. It's like a heavy flu. I said, we can't be sitting around our customers like an old woman comes in, we give it to her or whatever. So we just shut.
Mm.
Staff were getting apprehensive, and then lockdown was announced the next day. And we knew it was coming anyway, but we shut a bit early. But all the restaurants were saying the same thing. They're saying, we are shutting for the safety of our staff and customers. Because you were seeing the pictures of the people in Hamzat suits picking up dead bodies in the streets. So there was all that fear was still very present.
Mm.
And I was thinking to myself, do you know what? This is now, about a month into lockdown. This is doing my head in. I've had enough. I need to keep busy. But all my staff are at home at this point. Furlough had been announced.
Yeah.
So they're all at home getting 80% of their wage anyway. So what's the point in them coming in? And they probably won't even get more unless they do, they're full-time hours, in which case they're actually only really getting paid 20% when they get paid 80% for doing nothing. So I thought, no one's going to want to do this, but out of the blue, the staff members just said, we need something to do. Can you just give us something to do? Just even if it's going around and checking on the venues, we're going crazy or not good for our mental health. And then I had a chef, a friend of mine, Yvonne, and her business had gone down. She started her own business because of lockdown. It hadn't survived. And I actually saw her online trying to sell her trainers. I went, I wonder if that's because she needs money. I don't think she was. I think she was okay. Part of it was getting furloughed. And I phoned her up and said, would you come and help? And Yvonne did the kitchen. And, I'd out front myself, helping with family members, my kids, they all came in, and then one or two staff members. And I said, we'll just open for one weekend, and we'll call it the Buck Down Takeaway. And we'll only do it for one weekend, and say we'll do it for one weekend, and we'll sell 200 burgers, only burgers. And then that'll be it. 200 gone. And we'll test the waters. It went crazy. Like we said we were going to do it, thousands of likes in the posts. Oh my God, I'm dying for $1. And 700 people turned up. And this was when there was you weren't allowed large groups. I thought, I'm going to jail. I'm going to be on Good Morning Britain, Piers Morgan telling me I'm a COVID idiot and shouting at me, and I'm going to be in the front of the Sun or some tabloids or whatever. This guy's a maniac. He's going to kill us all. But it was okay. They were all socially distanced. We said to 500 people, we said, look, that's it. We'll probably do 200. And we said to everyone else, we're saying, look, you're going to be 2-3 hours waiting here till you get this. And they're like, it's fine. We've got nothing else to do. They didn't care.
Wow.
So they all queued up for 3 hours. We got it sold out, and then we just said, right, let's do it every weekend. And we just kept going.
And lockdown kept going through lockdown.
Kept going through lockdown, and then everything opened up in the summer, as you know. We opened everything up. And after that, we were 7 days doing takeaway. And anything they announced, they said, you're going to shut at 5, we'll shut at 5. They said, now you need to shut down again. We said, we're going to keep selling takeaway. And we just kept at 7. And we actually came out of COVID in the black. We weren't in the red. We hadn't lost any money because we just kept going. And we also, our social media had just gone through the roof. It was well up 30, 40,000.
Yeah.
You know?
Interesting. Knowing everything that you now know about being in the hospitality and restaurant business, if you were to start something new, right? Walk me through what your thought process would be. So imagine, let's create an imaginary restaurant idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have any names? Let's call it, I don't know, Sam's Restaurant.
Right, Sam's Restaurant.
Sam's Restaurant.
That's my son's name.
Sam's Restaurant. And you were thinking through how you'd go about starting this. What's going through your mind?
Well, first thing you got to look at, for me, I don't like to follow trends. I like to look at tradition over trends. So it doesn't matter, like if you talk to me about a very successful restaurant. So if you talk to me about one in Glasgow, Paisano. Paisano is actually built around, the idea is around a traditional Italian Neapolitan pizzeria that has been successful for 100 years. That business model. If you talk about Wunderbar, which is huge, it's based around a classic German beer hall. It's its own thing, but you've got to look at a tradition. What's got longevity.
Gotcha.
So you want something that's rooted in tradition, but you want to have your own flavor. You want to have your own aspects to it. You want to make it different. You want to make it stand out. So that's first. You've got the concept, and then you need to think of location.
That's huge as well.
Huge. Now, back in the day, it was important that your location was on a visible space. Now, by that I mean that you would want something on a busy high street where people were walking by all the time. Or you would want something, that would say you had the busiest nightclub in Glasgow. You'd think, wouldn't it be great if we had a bar across the road from that? In the era of social media, that doesn't matter as much, because what you want it. You don't want it to be too far from people or difficult to get to. But what you do want, you want it to be easy to get to and everything. But if you see something on Instagram and you go, wow, the food looks incredible and the place looks great and I really want to eat there, and people are saying it's fantastic, you don't really mind if it's down a side street. You'll go and find it.
Fact. Yeah.
If it's 10 minutes from your house, you'll go. If it's half an hour from your house, you'll go. And that's what people do, they seek it out. But in terms of catchment area, for me, you need to have everything there. You need to have businesses close by you. You want residents. You want something where there's some kind of retail, and you want some kind of nightlife near you. You want to tick all those boxes, as many of those boxes as you can. If you can't tick all those boxes, that's going to affect what your sales are, really. So, for instance, we've got one in Southside. There's not a lot of nightlife around there, but there's a huge amount. It's by far our busiest place for takeaway.
That's what we went to.
There's a huge catchment area for takeaway. There's lots of locals. There's Hampden Stadium, and and there's a great local community, and there's students. So there's enough there, So you have to think where what people are going to come here and why.
Gotcha. How do you fund that though? How do you fund? So imagine I was starting Sam's, or you were starting this new restaurant idea. What's your thinking in terms of funding?
Funding.
Yeah.
Well, you first and foremost, I've never relied on the bank, and I always wondered in the early days of Soho. I thought, is that a big mistake? Because in those days it was like, God, if only I had the bank to be able to, they could have given me this money and I would have had a cushion. But actually, the reality is, I had a couple of people I know who started roughly the same time and got a good bank deal with maybe a backer. So a lot of people go into a business partnership with a backer.
What's a backer?
A backer is like someone that will say, well, I tell you what, you need £200,000 to start Sam's. What I'll do is I'll get the £200,000 for you. I want a share in your business.
Gotcha, I see.
But in actual fact, they might not even give you the money. They might just have assets of their own that they then put against as a guarantee in the bank to give you the money.
I see.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So a lot of people do things like that. I never did anything like that.
Okay.
What I did was, it was a brewer's loan. So the brewer works like this. So say you are Heineken, okay? You say to me, well, I'll give you £100,000. But what you have to do is your beers on the bar, they have to be Heineken. They also own Neck Oil, Heineken Silver, and Amstel. And you have to sell those 4 products, and you have to buy them from me.
I see.
And what I'll do is you pay me back that £100,000 at the same rate you would a bank loan, but you also have to buy the beer at a price that I dictate.
I see.
So I get to kind of, you're paying back the loan anyway. You're responsible for paying back the loan, and you're also got to buy the beer off me, and quite frankly, it's at a higher price than you would normally pay. So that's how I got funding.
I see.
But we're now brewery loan free. We've paid it all off, which benefits us now our margins, so we can buy our beer from whoever we want. And it's one of those things in business you learn that when you're starting out, you have to do things like sign a personal guarantee, which is when you're leasing a premises off a landlord. If you fall behind, you have to sign a personal guarantee so they can come for any of your assets. So if you have equity in your mortgage, you have a car, the landlord has a right to come after all that if you can't pay your rent. That's what you always have to do in your first one, because you've got no trading history.
I see.
So now we don't we have a good trading history. And one of the great things that even in those days of struggling to pay, we never put a company under, and we paid all of our bills eventually. But we did did pay. So now we can get great credit. So now that the money's coming in, things are so much easier. People are paying you to list your beer. So now someone will say to me, I'll give you £50,000 to sell my beer for a year. I'll just give you it, and you can buy it from whoever you want.
Whoa.
Or £100,000 or whatever. You can get all these. So it's almost like as you start to make money, your opportunities increase exponentially.
I see.
And it's just, this is why I'm always, I'm quite vocal at standing up for new business. And I think when you're raising taxes and doing all these things that are affecting someone that's just starting out,
It's very difficult.
It's very difficult. I think we should have a tax model for business that's a bit more, based on sales and profits, rather than something like rates. So for instance, business rates is like what you pay in your house is council tax. What you pay in your business, it's effectively council tax, but it's called business rates. So if you take a place across the road and it's dead, you'll pay £15,000 a year rates. Right?
Irrespective.
But if it starts making a fortune, you still pay £15,000 rates.
I see.
So you should that not be a case of, well, actually, I've just opened this up, and the government should say, well, if you're not making any money, we're not going to ask you to pay rates. But if you start making fortunes, we'll probably ask you for a bit more than we were when you were dead. Kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So I think that the rates tax, which is fully devolved to the Scottish Government, is very antiquated and needs reviewed.
Right.
So there's wee things like that.
Okay. So you've got the location, you've got the concept itself, which you'd suggest to be rooted in some traditional concept that's got longevity. What else would you be thinking about?
Well, you've got to think of your system. So there's no use you saying, so you say, right, at Sam's restaurant, I'm going to do jollof rice.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I'm going to do 100 flavours. Right? And then you open your kitchen. Well, how big is your kitchen? How much stock have you got to put in that kitchen? What equipment do you need to do your 100 flavours of jollof rice? How is the rice going to be kept fresh? How are you going to cook it? So you have to start thinking in the structure of your kitchen. Lots of people, this is something you see when money people get involved with restaurants that they get wrong. They think, I'll write this menu out and it's going to be great, and that site's going to be great, and then they make the kitchen tiny. And they don't have any perception of what equipment they have to do. So you have to have a system.
Oh.
So you probably, if you've never had a restaurant before, you want your head chef to be one of the first people on, because they'll have to design your kitchen and design your menu.
Mm.
And then you might say, well, I want to do this. This is going to be my menu. And they might turn around and go, we can't do this menu from this kitchen. Maybe we'll do this. You need to
I
compromise,
see.
and you need to work that out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How did you get like the consistency? Because that was one piece that you were trying to like solve in the early years.
The consistency came from, first and foremost, got to be said, you got to have the right team. So you get everything down on paper to an exacting standard and recipe. And the thing that you always have to watch with chefs is, one day I would come in and I'd go, that chicken tastes different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've added a bit more smoked paprika. I think it tastes better. No, I don't want that. But I think it tastes nice. I don't care if it tastes nice. I want the guy or whoever came in last week and enjoyed it, I want them to come back and want it to taste the same. And I want them to know what to expect next week. So you have to get the right kind of people that follow the procedures, and once everything's agreed, and that's it. That is key. The consistency is key. So we effectively had a recipe manual, get followed to a T. Got a brilliant chef called Juan, and he was the guy that did it. He really was a systems freak. He very particular, wanted everything done the right way. And he started running the kitchen for me and doing a really great job of it. Just staying in line.
Right.
Staying focused, keeping the guys focused, keeping the guys trained. And what we do now is we have a central production kitchen. So the way our business model works is the chicken comes in there, we butcher it, tenderize it, put it in the marinade, and we make all the marinades and everything there, all the sauces there, the coating for the chicken, all gets made there. And then the restaurants in the city centres phone their orders into our own production kitchen.
I see.
So that comes out with the burgers readily made, the chicken butchered and done, and everything done right. The sauce is already made, so they'll just say, I need 100 burgers, and I need X amount of gallons of buffalo sauce, X amount of gallons of barbecue, so on and so forth.
Oh, I see.
And they come out in refrigerated vans. And it also means that the footprint for the kitchen in prime city centre space is reduced. Because I've got a bigger kitchen out there, and it also means I maintain the consistency. I've got proper chefs there, really experienced guys, and they love it because now they're getting to work 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. They're not having to work nights anymore. So they've got a good work-life balance, and they enjoy it. So it's for consistency. It's to avoid paying for large spaces in prime city centre sites for kitchens, and it just means I've got and I keep my really good guys happy as well.
Yeah.
So it's worked out really well.
Yeah. How do you validate that your recipe is actually resonant with people? How do you validate, for example, your chicken is something that people actually want to go? What's that process like for you?
Well, for me, it was like I tasted the fried chicken abroad, and then we went to this place called in Nashville, this place called Prince's Hot Chicken, where Nashville hot chicken was invented, and they just did the best chicken I've ever tried. And I got chatting to one of the chefs. I went back there. It was in like a little shopping centre, and the chef was out the back. I gave him $200, and I said, "Can you come and meet me in Nashville? Here's my number, and I'll give you another $200. I just need the recipe for your chicken, for your Nashville hot oil." And he did. He came in and met us, gave us a bit of paper, and said, "That's it." And it's pretty much what we do, bar there was one ingredient we took out and another that we did a bit more of it, and something else we added. But it was based around that.
So it's literally taking something that works and
taking something that works. And people act like it's some sort of mystic thing, but it's not. It's like, see when you go to Pisano we spoke about, you go for an amazing Neapolitan pizza. That's just a classic recipe done really, really well. There's no secret. They just buy really good tomatoes. They buy really good flour. They've got the yeast and everything, and they just do it in a really good oven, and that's it. It's the same with us. It's a very classic fried chicken recipe, but we had a very clear idea. We wanted it to be bursting with flavour.
And
And we just...
it does.
It does. It really hits you.
Yeah, it does.
And I just said, I just need that. With all due respect to other places, I just think ours is just a little bit more. It's almost like an intense flavour.
Yeah.
And we want every dip, every sauce to really, really jump in your mouth, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And we were also one of the things I don't like about fried chicken in a lot of fast foodie places is when it's got that almost like claggy, thick, breadcrumby crust, you know? We wanted ours to be very light, very crisp. So that you get in there and you get the succulence of the chicken.
Yeah.
We were really, really particular on that.
Yeah. I'll just start to like wrap up this episode. There was maybe two more things I wanted to touch on before we go on the reflective stage. And my alarm is ringing. Let me turn that off. And that's this idea of two things. One is branding.
Yeah.
And getting the right atmosphere in your restaurant itself, but also online. What are you thinking about as well? Is that like, are you reproducing something that works? Is that the same principle, or are you coming up with something new? How do you go about branding?
You need to have a kind of, there needs to be a story that you know. When you see the logo and you see it from the outside and you see the menu and it tells you a little bit of a story about what's inside. You have to do that. And you can do that. You can see, it's amazing how much just by, we've got the Bucks Bar logo, chicken like a rock and roll. And I honestly think that just looking at that logo, you've got a rough idea what you're going to get inside. Music's, I'm always amazed at how few restaurants focus on music. And sometimes I go in a place and it's just beautifully decorated. We've got a trap sound system and it kills the atmosphere. So we're always very careful about our sound systems. But there needs to be something. It's like if there's a restaurant across the road called Bella Italia, well, that was a chain, right? But you've got an idea what that's going to look like inside. You can see it, you can have pictures of Venice on the walls. You've got an idea what the food's going to be and stuff. With Bucks, you kind of know what you're getting before you walk in the door.
I see.
So you've got to, the worst thing you can do is say you're going to deliver something and then you don't. I also like using the word bar because it's a way of underselling, and you're just going into a bar for some bar food. You come away going, that was a great
I
meal.
See.
So you it's a little way of like underselling and over delivering.
Yeah, I get you.
So they come in and things are just a little bit. It's a lot fresher and tastier
than what you get
bigger
in
than
the
you
traditional bar.
Yeah, that's like restaurant standard food, but this is a bar.
Yeah.
And I'm getting table service. I'm not going and standing at a bar. I'm actually sitting here in a comfortable seat. And
it's interesting that you mentioned like the story aspect of your brand. It has to tell a story. I didn't realize that was that important really until recently.
There's got to be a little hint of what you're going for. And then you go in and this is what I expected.
Gotcha. Something I know many, and maybe you can keep me in check here. Something I know many new business owners would have difficulty working out is how much of this process of systems should I outsource and how much should I do myself to save costs. So for example, say branding. I could work with a design agency, get something really good, but it's going to set me back, I don't know, 4 or 5K, I don't know. Well, I could go on Canva, I could make a logo and do something that works for myself, but it's not as effective. For you, how are you thinking about the balance between trying to save costs by doing things yourself versus outsourcing to get higher quality?
I'll tell you this, right? For instance, I outsource someone to do my design.
Yeah.
But the best way to do that is you have to have an idea. It's like you mentioned the recipe of the chicken there. There's a million ways to do the chicken, but I have to have an idea in my head of if I'm going to give you chicken, it's going to taste good, it's going to taste like this.
I see.
I need to know what I'm aiming for.
Okay.
It's a little bit like that with your branding and things like that. So you've got to have an idea of the kind of thing you want. And the better job you can do of explaining that to a graphics guy, the less it's going to cost you.
Gotcha.
Okay. I mean, you could literally just say, I like the JP Morgan font. I want it to look like that. Yeah, and you're going, I like these colors. I like this place. you show them examples. These are the ones I like. This is the vibe I'm going for. I like that font. The more detail you can give them, it's not going to cost you thousands and £1,000. Because the other way is, listen, I want a logo for a really cool bar. They come up with a million ideas, charge you for it, narrow it down, and then you keep tweaking it, and they're just charging you for the time.
I see. So knowing what you want before you go there.
Oh yeah. You've got to have a bit clear vision in your head, and you need to be. It all needs to come together.
Right.
And the more you can take people with you and explain that to them, to deliver your vision, the better.
Gotcha. Now, when you've had those tough years, and I asked you earlier about what kept you going, your answer was you need to pay back your dad.
Yeah.
Now you're at a point where Boxbar is doing well. So
You
know, like you're doing well. What keeps you going now? What where's your drive coming from?
The most enjoyable thing for me is the feeling of growth is fantastic. I mean, what's better? Why else are we here? So what is growth? Well, I've got some really key people working for me now. I want them to earn more money. You know, that's an interesting place where we are now, because you go from owning a restaurant to you're maybe giving someone a job to help them through uni, and then another person to, they're just looking for this until they can find something else. And you know what, all these transient things, or someone that's just working as a waiter because they can't find anything else or whatever, to now we've actually got people where, look, this can be your career. You can actually set this up and you can earn good money, and we're going to look at pension plans and share options and all this kind of stuff. So I'm excited about providing that for my key people. And then the bigger we get, the more other people can step up to their level.
I see.
And we're really becoming a place where it's like, do you know what? You people got a good career thanks to us. We're help provide that for you. You're helping us. We're helping you. We're all growing together. And that feeling of growth is great. Now, I've had to rein that in a little bit the past year. We opened 2 restaurants in Edinburgh the year before.
Yeah.
And this year I've just reined it in a little bit. I'm going to have to expand my production kitchen operation before we expand any more. So we've slowed down a little bit, but we're getting ready to go again.
Right.
And that feeling of growth is just something I love.
Yeah.
Getting better, faster, more streamlined. It's just a constant work in progress. And that's what keeps me hungry.
Right. How is your dad reacting now to what you're doing? So earlier,
he's great. So one of the best things that I ever did was, my dad's the barber business, and it's actually that business celebrated a couple of years ago celebrated its 100th birthday, because it was my grandfather's business before him. And do you know what it's called?
No.
Sam's.
You're kidding.
You're sitting there talking about Sam's restaurant. That was my grandfather's name. Sam's.
Interesting.
So it was called Sam's. It's still there. It's down at Govan Hill. And my cousin as well, he's got one in Rutherglen. It's called Sam's too. So there's kind of 2 offshoots of this. And my dad, he's in his 70s now. He was tired. It's a tough industry now. It doesn't make it he was stressed. Do you know what I mean? So what we did was he signed that over to the people that have worked with him for decades, and he came to work for me, just driving the vans. And so that's it. So I kind of help look after him now. He doesn't have to worry about anything. He's got enough money, doesn't have to work too hard. He likes the old school. Just see that my grandfather worked till he was 82. And
that's where you get your drive to work from.
It's just
like your upbringing and pushing people around you.
People talk about this work-life balance, right? But it's better to just do 35 hours a week. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But how many people are doing that and then spending the rest of their time on a screen or on a couch or getting pissed or smoking weed or it's like I told you, I like being around the restaurants. I like being around my office. I like being around people. I'm enjoying doing this. 10 people watch this, come for $1. Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep going.
Yeah. When you look back on your journey, so imagine 18-year-old Michael.
Yeah.
Bergson was here, and you had a chance to talk to him. You had 5 minutes to say something. what would you tell him? A piece of advice,
I
reflection?
think at that point, I would probably have recommended that he try and. I think at that point, I still had aspirations to run club nights.
Mm.
I was looking at that. And I wasn't making any money.
Mm.
I would have probably told him just to knuckle down and get on that career ladder a bit quicker.
Really?
Yeah. I'm a big believer in what's helped me, especially when you learn your trade, learn your industry. It's like you're a software developer.
Yeah.
If you have your own software company, one
Mhm.
day it'll be through all the things you've learned working for
Gotcha.
other people.
I see.
I think I would have liked to have got on that ladder a little bit quicker. Whereas I was just, 18, working in a pub, happily doing it, trying to organise and trying to make money promoting nights, and not really making any money doing it.
Right, I see.
Sometimes wasting some of my wages doing that. I would have said do that a bit sooner.
I see. Okay.
And it was quite a couple of years after that, I ended up working for a restaurant group and getting from supervisor to assistant manager. And
Yeah. So, from your perspective, it makes a lot of sense to get practical experience learning from other
100%.
people doing what you'd like to do
and
eventually.
try and work your way up. So the thing is, sometimes people look for, well, what's my next step? It needs to be a financially rewarding one. And in the restaurant industry is actually notorious, especially back then, because what would happen is when you start going up the management ladder, you would actually forgo a lot of your tips.
I see.
So you actually can earn less money going into assistant manager and manager. Or, you see waiters doing better than you, maybe not at the place you work, but maybe elsewhere. So you stay as a waiter. But you can't put a value on knowledge and lessons.
Wow.
You really can. All the things you're learning here and all the things I learned working for other people. Phenomenal. It was like a university,
Yeah.
But I wasn't clever enough to go to university.
Yeah. So, like, you got your knowledge from actually working on people, and that helped you start yours and grow over the years. All right. So, I tend to flip the 18-year-old question, right? And I say, imagine if 80-year-old Michael was listening back to this conversation a few decades from now.
Mm-hmm.
What is something you'd want him to know and reflect?
Oh, I'd want him to say, you did well to work and enjoy your life and all the things that were important. I think it's important to get to 80 and feel like, I think a mistake a lot of people make is, I'm not going to enjoy life until I retire. People at 55 going, oh, well, only 5 more years to go and I can relax or do whatever I want to do. No. I mean, a friend of mine, his dad was like that. And, his whole plan was, I'm going to retire at 60, very wealthy man, and I'm going to travel the world with my wife. And he waited till he was 70. And by the time he got to 70, his wife had some health problems and they couldn't do it.
Oh.
So, do it now. I would want my 80-year-old self to go, you did it right. Well done. We've had a great run. We've had a good time. We've worked hard. We've done well. But we've enjoyed life. We've not, we've spent plenty of time with our families. We've travelled.
How do you enjoy life now?
Oh, easy. I enjoy every day at work, and I love restaurants.
Yep.
I mean, I'm a restaurant freak. Love trying new places. It's almost like a hobby.
Yeah.
I love traveling. I just love it. I love everything from city breaks to beach holidays. I just love it all. So that was one of the things, obviously, in lockdown. I made a conscious decision. I said, the moment anywhere comes off that list, I'm going. And I did it. We went Croatia, we went Italy. We just kept, and we get all these cheap holidays, because no one was traveling. And that was it. We just kept going.
Right.
And I just love traveling. I love seeing different things.
Yeah.
One of the best ways to experience a culture, I think, is to eat their food.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever watch a guy, Anthony Bourdain.
No.
Watch him. He's sadly passed away, but he was the best travel and food guy, an ex-chef, Anthony Bourdain. He's also a brilliant writer, and he was the best. And he would just do that thing. He would just go places, just sit down with the locals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was his speciality, and I love doing that.
Yeah. It's just that I mentioned that because a friend of mine was telling me this a couple of months ago that how a way to experience an area's culture. It's not even just to go to the highbrow restaurants. Like it goes to like the local foods,
That's exactly it.
experience.
Best advice: go see if you're staying in a hotel.
Yeah.
Ask the staff where they eat. Ask them where they go for a drink after work.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. See where the locals eat.
All right. Okay. Now, final question on the podcast, hold on, rapid fire. This is the one question you would hear in every Stories That Shape Us podcast, right? Feel free to take some time to think about it. There's no rush. But given your life's experiences, your journey, your ups and downs, if your life was a book, what would its title be?
Oh, Bucked.
What? Bucked?
Bucked up.
Why did you choose that title?
Oh, I don't know. A bucking good life or something like that.
I see. Okay.
Try and work that brand in there, get a bit of advertising. Enjoy your bucking life.
I see.
Have a good bucking time or something like that. I don't know.
Right. Honestly, Michael, it's been lovely chatting with you. We've got rapid fire questions. Are you ready? 5 questions. You've got 5 seconds for each answer.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Question 1. Favorite Glasgow restaurant apart from Box Bar?
Kapow.
Kapow. Where?
Brilliant place.
Where is that?
Asian restaurant. I go there all the time. That or Mr. Singh's India.
Okay.
But Kapow. Kapao.
Okay.
Fantastic restaurant.
All right. Best compliment someone's given you that's made the most impression on you?
Oh, the best compliment is when someone comes in to the restaurant and says it's our favourite place.
Mm.
That's the one. This is my favourite place.
Whoa. And do you get that frequently?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is my favourite restaurant.
Okay.
You're like, wow.
That's a good one.
That's massive.
That's a good one. Best advice someone's given you this year?
Hire people better than you.
Doesn't that sometimes cause this inferiority complex thing? No. Okay.
You can't be a master of everything.
Fact.
You've got to be good at everything, that understand what you want. There's other people who are going to be better than you at many things.
Okay. Favorite place you traveled to this year?
Oh, we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, Lagos. Yeah.
I went to Lagos and
Visit Lagos.
Visit Lagos. Don't believe what they say. It's friendly. It's beautiful. It's amazing.
Okay. And then final question: what's your favorite book? A book or movie? Something that you read that's really changed your perspective.
Well, actually, we just mentioned Anthony Bourdain. Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain.
Right. Okay. And why?
He was a chef, and he writes this book that really, really encapsulates what it's like working in the restaurant industry. And it's got great advice, and it's great philosophies. And I would recommend, even though you've not been in a restaurant, he's a brilliant writer, you've not run a restaurant, sorry, you would love it. Anthony Bourdain, Kitchen Confidential.
Perfect. And thank you so much, Michael. It's been such a pleasure. For folks, watching or listening, we're linking Box Bar, right, at the comments as well. And also your LinkedIn. You're very active on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Complaining about stuff.
Michael's LinkedIn as well. But please, if you're ever in Glasgow, I have been to Box Bar. That's my wife's blessings favorite chicken spot in Glasgow. Do visit Box Bar and let us know what you think. I'm sure Michael would be very happy to hear your feedback. Any final parting words, Michael, to our listeners?
I'll give you the tenner later that I owe you for saying that about Buck's chicken. So.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Please do subscribe and see you in the next episode. And yeah, that's
good.